Okay, hi Mesh. I'm gonna go through it kind of quickly because I know you have so many of these to watch, but here we go. Also, I'm gonna move around my Zoom camera because it covers the slides and I might be a better way to do it, but I'm a little technologically challenged. So here we go. So my paper was on, should business decisions be primarily profit driven during a pandemic? So So the background of the pandemic and its economic impact. So by the end of 2020, there were 19.9 million cases of COVID and approximately 350,000 deaths in the US alone. These impacts resulted in an economic recession that resulted in widespread unemployment, job loss that resulted in a large amount of uninsured adults, American hunger hit new highs, and businesses had to respond to a drastically changing environment. So, my ethical dilemma: should businesses be primarily profit driven during a pandemic? So, here is the support for profit driven decisions. First, capitalism and the free market economy of the US. The US is based on an economy that encourages maximizing profits over all else. Two, companies have a duty to their shareholders to maximize shareholder or for the owners maximize value. In order to grow business and for them to hire more employees, they have to keep their investors and their owners by profiting and giving them a reasonable return on their investment. And this is very good for the economy through employment and the goods and services they provide. And third, people argue that the government is responsible, not the businesses. The government has a duty to protect its citizens and provide support, but it's not just on individual businesses during a time like this. So next, support for other than profit-driven decisions. So first, CSR, corporate social responsibility. Modern businesses have responsibility to society beyond stockholder or investors of a business. CSR and ethics. Employees and customers expect these big businesses to take their resources and allocate them in order to promote social good. And three, conscious capitalism, the belief that businesses can equally make money, satisfy their shareholders, care for employees, and make a difference in the community by focusing and prioritizing. My primary research. So I interviewed Hanny Riscala, Senior Vice President of Field Operations and Global Risks at Liberty Mutual Insurance Company here in Seattle, and I talked to him about what his company has been doing in response to the pandemic. So he talked about how they're doing two things. It had a large interview, but two of the main takeaways are they're sharing software that help their partners, and they're accelerating a drone program for catastrophe help that eliminates the need for personal in-person interactions. So the conclusion I drew from the interview is the company is staying true to its statements, slogans, and brand promises. And it returned $250 million to insurance customers through an auto customer refund program, which gave back its customers 15% refund on 2 months of their premium. And it also committed $15 million in crisis grants to community partners for coronavirus relief. So therefore helping their communities, their employees, and their consumers. So I also did a survey on 45 employed individuals over the age of 25 in 4 different states, and all my questions were on a scale of 1 to 5. So here's some of the survey results if you want to pause and look at this, but I'm going to jump to the conclusions. So the conclusions from the survey. Employees view their employers as prioritizing profits during the pandemic and disagree with this. During a crisis, consumer buying decisions aren't as focused on company investment in CSR. So customers don't necessarily care right now what these businesses are doing to promote social good, what their corporate responsibility is, but whether a company demonstrated investment in corporate social responsibility during the pandemic will be more important in the long run to buying decisions after the crisis has ended, resulting in long-term economic health for the companies. The community impact. So COVID-19 workplace outbreaks were a huge problem because these workers were deemed essential to US infrastructure operations, but due to a lack of investments made by these businesses and a lack of precaution taken by the employers, many Americans became sick or died. This happened at meat processing plants, with farm workers, and even in Amazon warehouses. Business culture. A huge change was small versus large businesses. Large companies averaged a 2% revenue growth during the pandemic in the first 9 months, while small businesses shrank 12% over the same period, which is a common theme. All of the market share that these small businesses lost is being taken by the large businesses, and they're further profiting. So that's a huge change because the small businesses are losing so much of their market share. But then we have pandemic relief efforts that were taken by these large corporations and that were released in the media that put them in a positive light. But then we found out later on that these were actually overshadowed by the scale of profits and money returned to the investors, in addition to large-scale layoffs by those same companies. So although examples like McDonald's and Apple were saying they were doing all of these things to help during the pandemic, but at the same time, they were firing a huge amount of employees and making a ton of profit. Also, industry decimation, and I have a visual for that. Tourism, travel, airlines, and retail were 4 of the industries that were the most impacted with their liquidity and profitability during the pandemic. My conclusion: businesses need to find a balance between focusing on generating profit and promoting social good during such a devastating time like a global pandemic. Large businesses have a greater ability and therefore greater responsibility to prioritize promoting the health and well-being of their employees, customers, and society. A focus on CSR will benefit these companies in the long run. Although it might not seem important to their customers now, looking back on it in the future, customers in my survey showed that they would be more likely to buy from a company they felt made CSR efforts during the pandemic. Okay, my language development. I took Spanish. I did IB Spanish with Profe Toy during my junior year. I did reading of a play in class. It's called La Casa de Bernarda Alba. Daily discussions, worksheets, and we wrote a lot of scripts and essays. So we had verbal development, written development, and readings comprehension. Here is my pre and post assessment. I improved 1 phase, I felt, in each of my categories because my listening, speaking, communication, and reading skills I felt were all improved by my in-class experience because we kind of hit all of the different kind of like sectors of language development. For my service learning, I did 2 things. I am an academic tutor, and I did 45 hours of that. It's with a 7th grade girl that I help out, and she has ADHD, and it's been super rewarding. They're my learning outcomes, but a reflection is I learned how rewarding truly it can be helping others and seeing their growth. And when you try to teach someone, you often learn a lot from your student being the teacher and about yourself in the process. Here's a little text message she wrote me about how she wrote on her planner and was so proud of herself and got all of her missing work done. And it was just one of the proudest moments for me because I knew it finally paid off. And then I also put together flowers for Fieldstone Memory Care at the beginning of the pandemic. My grandpa passed away of Alzheimer's, so it's a cause that's very close to me. And my boyfriend's grandpa was in this facility, and I'd also previously volunteered here. So when the pandemic hit and the residents of the facility were unable to see their family, I knew that I wanted to do something to maybe brighten their days. So I put together hundreds of flowers, 2 times for all of the residents. And I had a lot of trouble finding affordable flowers. So I went to many different places and finally figured out Costco. So I learned that you have to overcome minor yet discouraging challenges in order to be successful achieving goal, and taking the time to plan and organize something to help people who are struggling, especially when the cause is close to your heart, is extremely fulfilling. And that is all. So thank you so much. Bye.